I asked the staff about coming down there because I'd rather be close to my fellow fighters for liberty and freedom than being up here on this stage. But they said I had to stay up here because of the lighting. So I could see you better and I feel you better down there. I feel the vibrations from you, from this burning desire to put this country back on the right course. The course that our founding fathers gave us. And in the introduction, they mentioned that there was a little vote yesterday. A little vote, 333. We passed the bill to audit the Fed in the U.S. House. When my good friend Ron Paul was leaving Congress, back in the last Congress, I went to him fairly early on and I told Dr. Paul, I'm a physician as well, so we were medical colleagues as well as both are original intent constitutionalists. I told Dr. Paul that I'd very much like to carry on his effort to audit the Fed, and he agreed. The very first day of this Congress, I introduced H.R. 24, which did indeed pass the House last night. At the same time, I introduced the second bill just right after it. I'm not sure exactly what number it is, but what it would do is get rid of the Fed altogether. And the third bill I introduced that same time while I was standing there in the well turning in bills, I believe very firmly in sound money policy. And the third bill I introduced was to go back to a gold standard. Now, the victory we had last night is a beginning. I was talking to Rand Paul as he was coming out. He has the companion bill. It's just like mine. It's Senate Bill S-209. And I asked Dr. Paul, another Dr. Paul, that however we can, we need to put pressure on Harry Reid and on the U.S. Senate to pass Audit the Fed in the U.S. Senate in this lame duck session. Now, there are a number of us that have been trying very hard not to have a lame duck session. That's where all of the bad stuff goes on. But you see, the reason we passed Audit the Fed bill in the U.S. House last night, it's not because of me and my staff. It's not because of our colleagues, our liberty-loving colleagues in the House. Certainly it had a little to do with it. It's not because of Dr. Ron Paul as an individual. It's not because of John Tate and Norm Singleton as individuals. The reason we passed that bill and the reason that Campaign Liberty was behind it is because of you. You see, you were the reason that bill passed last night. And the important thing about that is the influence that you have is just tremendous. You see, the very most powerful political force in America is embodied in the first three words of the U.S. Constitution: we the people. And I'll just tell you how powerful that is. My wife was asked to go, I live just outside of Athens, Georgia, and my wife was asked to go to the Clark County, Athens Republican Party's opening of their campaign headquarters. And she called me this morning and she said, what senators are on Dr. Rand Paul's bill? And there are 30 right now today, or they were this morning. And she said, well, are our two U.S. senators, Saxby Chambliss and Johnny Isakson, on the bill? And I said, well, Saxby Chambliss is, but Johnny Isakson isn't. So she called Johnny Isakson's office, and all she got was the voicemail machine, and she left a message. She says, I'm speaking at the Clark County Republican Party campaign headquarters opening tonight, and I'm going to be talking about Audit the Fed bill. And Senator Isaacson is not on the bill. And I'm going to tell those people tonight to call you if you're not on the bill. She got a personal call back just very shortly after that from one of Johnny Isaacson's staffers. And the staffer assured her that they had just called Rand Paul's office and had gotten on the bill today. Now, the point of that story is it's not because of my wife, but it's because of we the people like every one of us, talking to your elected representatives and saying what we want to have done, because this is not a democracy, it's a republic, it's a representative government. And you see, the politicians up here, even the most conservative ones, don't understand that when we were sworn into office, just like I swore when I was a young man, when I was sworn in the U.S. Marine Corps, 5 times now in the military, 4 times in the U.S. Congress, I put up my hand. I held the Bible in an app on my phone in the other hand. And I swore to uphold the Constitution against enemies both foreign and domestic. I take that pledge very seriously. Members of Congress, even the conservative ones, really don't understand what our founding fathers meant for government to be under that original intent, what they intended. Former U.S. Senator Eric Dirksen one time said this. He says, "When I feel the heat, I see the light." Now think about what he's saying there. He's saying that when enough people contact him about an issue and say, "Buster, you're heading in the wrong direction," after a while, if enough of that heat comes upon him, he'll start seeing the light. And friends, there are many members of the U.S. Congress in the House and the Senate that need to start feeling the heat so that they'll open their eyes and see the light. And many of them need to see the door. And the only way we're going to do that is if you and everybody within your sphere of influence gets actively engaged in the process of putting heat on members of Congress in the House and the Senate. And the only way that Rand Paul is going to get S-209 passed in the U.S. Senate in this disastrous lame duck session, hopefully it won't be disastrous, we're going to do everything we can to try to minimize the damage that Republicans and Democrats alike are gearing up to do in the lame duck. But you can help prevent that too. You see, in Hosea 4:6, God says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." Most members of Congress, but also most people who go to the polls and vote, most Americans right now today don't know what the Constitution says or it means or what our founding fathers meant by it. We're being destroyed because most people in America, most people, even conservatives in America, have bought into this lie that the Constitution's a living, breathing document. Our founding fathers never meant it to be that way. Just think about it. Back in those days, they didn't have TV and video games. So they read and they wrote. And we can read very clearly what they meant. I highly recommend a resource to you. The resource, and I hope you'll pull out your iPhones or make a note in your pads there. The resource is called The Federalist Papers in Modern Language. Now, you might remember that the Federalist Papers were a group of essays written by 3 of our founding fathers to the people in New York State. They were to be published in the newspapers in New York State to explain in minute detail what the Constitution would create as a government, or the government that the Constitution would create if they ratified it. It was James Madison, the architect of the Constitution, John Jay, the first U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice, and Alexandria Hamilton, who's probably the biggest Federalist of the crowd. Well, if you read the Federalist Papers in its original language, they're very difficult because their English was a little different from ours. But Mary E. Webster just transliterated from old-style English now into modern-day English what the Federalist Papers said. And you can go read there that the Commerce Clause was meant to regulate commerce, meant to make it regular, to make it occur, to make it free-flowing, particularly between the states and foreign commerce. Our founding fathers never, ever, ever meant for the Commerce Clause to allow the federal government to regulate commerce one iota as we do it today. You see, we the people, particularly you who are part of the Campaign for Liberty, you who believe in the Constitution as I do and you do, can make a difference. And we must. We've got to educate our families and our friends. And then secondly, we've got to motivate them to get engaged in this process. And third, we're going to have to fund the right kind of candidates so that they'll get elected. The big money goes to the people who want big government, because people who write big checks, they want something in return. And the only way we're going to start paring down the size and scope of government and send the powers back to the states or the people, as the 10th Amendment says that they should be, is for you to be engaged in making sure that we get the right people elected, keep the elected representatives' feet to the fire. If they get off track, throw them out of office. If they don't get back on track, hopefully you'll put enough heat on them so that they'll stay where they run, what they say that they will do. Get engaged in their campaigns and help fund them, because that's what it's going to take to get the right kind of people up here in Washington, in the House as well as in the U.S. Senate. We've got more liberty-loving members of the U.S. House today than we had when I came to Congress 7.5 years ago. But we don't have enough. We've been able to stop some bad legislation, as I think Thomas Massey told you. We've gotten a few good things passed, such as Audit the Fed bill. But there's some other things that we just desperately need to do. Because you see, I believe very firmly we're headed to an economic collapse of this nation. Republicans and Democrats alike are taking us down that road. There are things that we need to do, such as get out of the UN. I want to get the U.S. out of the UN and UN out of the U.S. I know there was a question asked about that. But more so than that, we've got to look at a way to cut down the size of government. I've got a bill that would mandate a balanced budget. It's the strongest balanced budget amendment that's been introduced in Congress. I've got another bill, a jobs bill, that would create millions of new jobs and bring manufacturing back to America. I've got another bill that would rip Obamacare out by the roots and replace it with policy that puts you in charge of making your health care decisions. I've got another bill that will close down the Department of Education totally. But you see, the politicians up here don't want to lose that power. And the only way we're going to get them to give up that power is we, the people, demand it. So just like your hard work to pass Audit the Fed bill, we can turn this country around. But what it's going to take is we, the people, to take into the streets and demanding a different kind of governance than I found, back to the kind of governance that our founding fathers meant for us to have. The kind of governance that you believe in or you wouldn't be here. We need an army of liberty-loving people that absolutely are going to demand nothing else but liberty and constitutionally limited government. And it's up to you. We've got to educate, we've got to motivate, we've got to fund. I'm a U.S. Marine. I believe in liberty. I believe in the Constitution. And I'm going to continue to fight for the things that I swore to uphold. I need your help. Will y'all join me? God bless you. Thank you so much.